You don't wake to sunlight or bird song, but to the unrelenting symphony of ancient Rome, an urban hum that seeps into every crack of your fourth-floor room. First comes the clang of a coppersmith's hammer from below, a steady pulse that never fades. Then a dry, ragged cough drifts from the next room, making you clear your own throat almost unconsciously. You open your eyes to dimness, only a thin sliver of pale grey light squeezing through a glassless window high on the wall, catching dust motes dancing in the air. You're lying on a straw-stuffed mattress, hard and slightly damp, the kind that leaves your bones aching after a night's sleep. This is your home, a single room in an insula, the rickety apartment blocks where most of Rome's population lives. These buildings are thrown up fast by profiteers, built with the cheapest wood and shoddy concrete fires, and collapses are common occurrences. The poet Martial once complained that sleep was impossible in Rome. The baker's clatter, a schoolmaster leading children in their morning recitations, the blacksmith's hammer. He swore the noise would drive even the most insomniac mad. You sit up and glance around. The room is your world, a wooden chest holding all your possessions, a small charcoal brazier for heating and cooking, the biggest fire hazard in the space, yet impossible to live without in the cold months. In the corner stands a clay water jug, next to the oil lamp you used last night. Its wick has left a smudge of black smoke on the wall. Your family still sleeps beside you, their breaths rising and falling in the tight space. There's no such thing as privacy here. The fourth floor is the upper class of the poor in Rome. The higher the floor, the cheaper the rent, the poorer the tenant, and the greater the risk. The ground floor is always shops or wealthier tenants, the only ones with running water. Your first challenge of the day is a simple one: what to do about your morning needs. Use the chamber pot in the room, then endure the stench until you can carry it downstairs to empty, or stumble down the 4 flights of steep, slippery stairs. Who knows what grime coats them? In the dark to the reeking public latrines below. You sigh. This is a Roman morning. You can smell the mix of scents in the air, the unwashed sweat of your neighbors, the sour tang of hangover from the tavern downstairs, the sharp ammonia of the public latrines drifting from the distance. Strangely, it doesn't feel unbearable. This is life, the mark of the great city stamped onto you. You've heard there are laws letting tenants sue landlords if their rooms are too dark, but it sounds like a distant joke. For you, having a roof over your head, not waking up in the middle of the night to a fire or a collapsing floor, is already a blessing. You stand to get dressed, a quick affair, for your wardrobe has only one option: the tunic. It's a simple garment, 2 large pieces of wool sewn together at the seams and shoulders, with slits for your head and arms. Yours is undyed, raw white wool, rough against the skin, hardly comfortable to wear next to your body, but tough and long-lasting. The hem is frayed, the shoulder mended with thick, clumsy stitches. This is the uniform of the Roman commoner, worn by men, women, and children alike. You pull the tunic on, cinching it with a leather belt to make it fit better, to hike the waist a little so you don't look too slovenly. Hanging from the belt is your most precious possession, a small pouch holding a few bronze coins, your entire budget for the day. As you fasten the belt, you glance at another garment folded on your wooden chest, the toga. In theory, as a male Roman citizen, you have the right to wear it in public. The toga is a symbol of status, the mark that sets Roman citizens apart from slaves and foreigners. It represents your rights, your dignity, your place in this great civilization. But honestly, it's an ordeal to wear. Made from a single massive piece of heavy wool 6 meters long and 2 meters wide by the standard measure, you can't drape it properly alone. You need someone to help fold its intricate pleats and drape them elegantly over your left shoulder and arm. Once on, you feel wrapped in a thick blanket, clumsy and stiff, your right arm barely able to move freely. It's heavy, sweltering in summer, and stains easily. So even though you own one, you only put it on when you have to for important public ceremonies, or to testify in court, grudgingly, for the daily grind of work and life. It's utterly useless. You've even heard that the great Emperor Augustus grew frustrated by this. He found that even in the Roman Forum, the very heart of Roman spirit, citizens chose the easy tunic over the toga. He was forced to pass a law demanding the toga be worn in the Forum to uphold Rome's dignity. But stationing men at every entrance to check clothing, it was never a practical rule. For you, it's an unspoken truce. Wear the toga when you need to play the part of a respectable citizen, but let the tunic be your constant companion for the rest of the time when you're fighting to make a living. Choosing the tunic isn't a slight to your citizenship, it's pragmatism. You slip on your leather sandals, the soles worn thin, so you can feel every cold, uneven stone of the floor through them. Your family stirs awake beside you. Your wife pulls on her stola, a sleeveless robe worn over the tunic, the mark of a married Roman woman. The children slip on small tunics just like yours. The whole family's clothes are painfully plain. And this is the reality for nearly all of Rome. Clothing isn't for fashion. It's for covering your body, staying warm, and quietly announcing your social class and identity. Now for breakfast, and don't expect a lavish spread. Yours is as simple as it gets. You reach into the wooden chest and pull out a hunk of bread left over from yesterday, round, dense, baked from coarse flour of barley or spelt, the bread of the common people. It's dry and hard, liable to choke you if you bite into it plain. This bread, though, is one of the greatest perks of being a Roman citizen. It comes from the grain dole, the famous lexinone. Every month, you present your citizens' papers at the designated granary and collect a ration of free grain. It's the foundation that keeps this million-strong city stable after all. Most Romans don't work the land. Without this food, Rome would descend into rioting in an instant. Of course, the grain you get is unprocessed. You have to take it to a commercial bakery and pay a small fee to have it ground into flour and baked into bread. You grab the clay water jug from the corner, pour half a cup of water, and stir in a splash of sour, vinegary wine. This is posca, the daily drink of soldiers and common folk alike. It's tart and astringent, but thirst-quenching, and the acidity, people say, makes the questionable water from the public fountains a little safer to drink. Think of it as the ancient Roman version of a functional beverage. You dip the hard bread into the watered-down wine, letting it soften and soak up the liquid, then take a big bite. No table, no chair. You stand or squat by the mattress and finish the meal in a hurry. The only point is to get enough energy to last until noon. Sometimes you let your mind wander to the breakfasts of the wealthy, fresh fruit, cheese, bread slathered in honey. But it's like a story from another world. As you eat, a strange, salty, fishy smell drifts up from the window of the wealthy neighbor below garum. The condiment Romans are obsessed with, made by fermenting fish innards and small fish. It's expensive. The best garum is said to be exquisitely flavorful. The cheap stuff, though, its stench is indescribable. Garum is a luxury for you. You only taste it on rare occasions. At a public feast for a holiday, maybe. Roman tastes are odd in other ways, too. They barely eat butter. To Romans, butter is food for barbarians. The Gauls, the Germans, they prefer olive oil instead. Butter's main use in Rome as an ointment slathered on the skin, and the exact recipe and flavor of Roman garum. It's still a mystery to this day. You finish breakfast, your stomach a little full, ready to face the noisy chaos of Rome's streets. Pushing open your door, you face one of the most dangerous tasks of the day: going downstairs. The stairs of your insula are dark and narrow. No handrails, steps hewn from rough wood that's cracked in many places, creaking under every footstep. The stairwell is cluttered with junk, reeking of a foul mix of damp, mildew, and the household waste your neighbors have sloshed onto the floor. You move slowly, carefully, one step at a time, all the while keeping an eye out, because at any moment, a tenant from an upper floor might hurl a chamber pot or a pile of garbage straight out the window. It's strictly forbidden in Rome, but everyone does it anyway. If you get hit, you just have to accept it as bad luck. Finally, you reach the street. The moment your feet touch the stone, you're overwhelmed by a flood of sensation. Rome's streets have no plan, no order. To the left of your insula is a blacksmith shop, choking with smoke and fire. To the right, a raucous tavern. Across the way, a laundry, its doorway reeking of a sharp, acrid stench. There are no sidewalks here. Pedestrians, mules loaded with goods, and slaves carrying wealthy men in litters, all jostle for space on a narrow street paved with uneven flagstones. You have to stay alert at all times, your eyes on the ground, where mud, animal dung, and garbage cover every inch. Your ears open to the world around you, ready to dart out of the way of a charging litter. Those slaves won't stop for a commoner, and you clutch your coin pouch tight to your waist, for the crowd is full of pickpockets, their hands quick enough to steal your day's food money in the blink of an eye. Wheelbarrows and carts are banned from Rome's city centre during the day, a rule set by Julius Caesar to ease traffic congestion. It sounds like a good idea, but it has a side effect. All cargo transport happens at night, so Rome's nights are even noisier than its days. The clatter of heavy cart wheels on stone and the shouts of drivers echoing through the streets all night long. Walking these streets is like swimming in a raging current. Your path isn't your own, but dictated by the social status of the people around you. When a senator's litter approaches, the crowd parts automatically, and you hurry to press yourself against the wall. your head bowed to let him pass. You jostle with other commoners, craftsmen, peddlers, shoulder to shoulder, but no one dares block the path of the powerful. These streets are a microcosm of Roman society, chaotic, crowded, but governed by a cruel, clear set of unwritten rules. You see the walls covered in graffiti, election slogans for aspiring politicians, portraits of gladiators drawn by their fans, just scrawled with their win counts, petty insults between feuding neighbors. These marks are the city's living notice board, brimming with raw, unpolished life. You glance up at the sky, sunlight squeezed into a thin strip by the towering insulae, and quicken your pace, eager to escape this chaos. Your work is on the other side of the city, and the journey itself is a trial. Later historians will debate how much Rome's night watchmen actually did to keep the peace and fight fires. But for you, living in the daylight, the real danger isn't nighttime robbers. It's the accidents and conflicts of the streets in broad daylight. Every step is a small battle for survival. After winding through narrow, dim alleyways, the world suddenly opens up before you. You've entered the Roman Forum. It's a world apart from the chaos you left behind. A vast open space paved with white marble, ringed by magnificent temples, basilicas, and memorial columns. Sunlight floods the square, making it glow with a brilliant, almost blinding light. For a commoner fresh from a cramped, filthy insula, the Forum is a staggering sight. The air feels cleaner here, your footsteps echoing in the open space, making you slow down, straighten your back. Almost without thinking, you look at the buildings around you. They're not just stone and wood, but symbols of power. There's the Basilica Julia, its great columns framing a hall where lawyers shout arguments. Merchants haggle over deals, the air buzzing with the energy of business and law. Not far off is the Curia, the Senate House small, but solemn and imposing. You can almost picture Rome's senators inside that plain brick building, deciding the fate of the entire empire. Further away stands the Temple of Vesta, a delicate circular structure, home to the eternal flame that symbolizes Rome's immortality, tended day and night by the Vestal Virgins. You can't see the flame, but knowing it's there fills you with a quiet, unspoken sense of calm. The Forum is full of people, officials in fine togas, talking under the colonnades, messengers hurrying across the marble, ordinary citizens like you. Just passing through, you spot specialized market nooks, one corner where booksellers sell papyrus from Egypt and scrolls of all kinds, another where spice merchants display precious goods brought from the Far East. These markets make the Forum more than just a political heart. It's the crossroads of commerce and information for all of Rome. And you know, beneath this gleaming marble floor, a complex network of underground service tunnels winds its way through the square. They're for slaves and laborers to tend to maintenance and logistics without disturbing the respectable life above ground. The entire Forum is like a perfectly designed stage, and you are both an anonymous extra on it and a member of the audience. Standing here, a jumble of emotions rises in your chest. On one hand, fierce pride as a Roman citizen. This magnificent square, these glorious buildings, are part of the great civilization you belong to. It makes you feel more than just a poor man in a shabby apartment. You're part of the people who rule the world. On the other hand, this grandeur makes you feel tiny, powerless. The scale, the order, the luxury of it all whisper the same truth. This is the power of the empire, and you are nothing against it. The buildings themselves are a form of propaganda, something to make you awestruck, to make you obey, and to make you proud. They hammer home the empire's order and Rome's greatness at every glance, making you willing to be just a small cog in this enormous machine. You take a deep breath and keep walking, leaving the Forum's splendor behind you, heading back to the streets that are yours. Messy, real, unpolished, you cross the Forum and reach your workplace. For a Roman commoner, job choices are few, and most are physical labor, paid by the day. Some days, you work on a building site Rome is always being built. New temples, new baths, new triumphal arches rising on every corner. You and other laborers heave heavy stone blocks under a foreman's shouted orders, or work high on scaffolding. No hard hat, no safety rope. Your only reward is a few sestertii, bronze coins, pressed into your hand at the end of the day. It's backbreaking, dangerous work, but you're building a city that will last forever. Or you might be a craftsman, working in a small shop fronting the street, a cobbler sitting on a stool all day, hammering and stitching leather sandals, a potter shaping jars and plates on a wheel. If you're a craftsman, you almost certainly belong to a guild, a sort of club for people in the same trade. It's a mutual aid society and a social network all in one. You meet regularly, eat and drink together, honor the patron god of your craft. But its most important job is to give you a decent funeral. Romans care deeply about what happens after death. They believe an unburied soul is condemned to wander for all eternity. But a proper funeral is expensive, and for a day laborer, saving enough money for it is nearly impossible. Guild members pay a small monthly fee into a common fund, and when a member dies, the guild uses that money to hold a funeral and bury them in the guild's shared cemetery. It's a huge comfort knowing that no matter how hard life gets, you won't be tossed aside like trash when you die. Your work defines your life, but your guild ensures your dignity in death. Tode, let's imagine something a little more pungent. You're a laundry worker, one of the oddest jobs in Rome. Romans have no soap, so how do they get the stubborn grease stains out of tunics and togas? The answer is simple: ammonia, and the easiest source of ammonia in the city is human urine. Your job is to stand in a large clay vat, stamping and kneading clothes soaked in a mix of aged urine and water with your bare feet. Laundries always keep a big urn by the door for passers-by to donate the raw material. The work reeks and it's grueling, but it works surprisingly well. The ammonia in the urine breaks down grease, turning yellowed wool bright white again. After stamping, the clothes are rinsed many times, then fumigated with sulfur to bleach and disinfect them, finally pressed flat with a special tool. Seeing a grimy toga transformed into something clean and new in your hands, it's a strange, unexpected sense of accomplishment. No matter what work you do, there's one constant. The workday ends at noon. Romans keep short working hours. The afternoon is for leisure and socializing. When the sun reaches its highest point, the foreman dismisses the laborers. The shopkeepers close their shutters. You wipe the sweat from your brow and collect your pay. Not much, but enough for lunch, and enough to enjoy the most important activity of a Roman's day. Work is done, and your stomach growls. Going home for lunch is impossible. Your tiny room has no proper kitchen. So like nearly all Romans, you turn to the street, the Thermopolium, the fast food shop. That's the backbone of Rome's food system. These shops are everywhere, marked by an L-shaped brick counter, its surface inset with large clay jars d'elia, bubbling with hot food. Steam curls from the jar mouths, mixing with the smell of cooking, and you can catch it from blocks away. You step up to the counter and peer into the jars, wondering what's on offer today. One jar holds meat stew with beans and vegetables, another lentil soup, a third spiced sausage simmering in broth. On the counter sit cold foods, a slab of hard cheese, skewers of olives, fresh baked bread. You use your hard-earned coins to buy a bowl of hot stew and a small piece of bread. The shopkeeper ladles the stew into a clay bowl. No utensils for you. Roman commoners eat with their hands or use bread as a spoon. You find a step by the door and sit down to eat. The stew is rich and spicy, seasoned with lots of herbs and a dash of garum, the Roman favorite, to boost the flavor. The hot food warms you from the inside out, chasing away the tiredness of the morning's work, making you feel alive again. The Thermopolium is a microcosm of Roman society. Here, you'll see everyone, laborers like you, hurrying messengers, even a senator's slave or servant, picking up lunch for his master. It seems like a place of equality, but the equality is only skin deep. You eat here because you have no other choice. The wealthy eat here for convenience, or to try something new. Their main meal is a grand feast at home in the evening, with 7 or 8 courses. You've heard tales of their extravagant tastes. Roast dormice, for example. They keep the small rodents in special clay jars, feeding them nuts and honey to fatten them up, then stuff them with filling and roast them whole. It sounds like a fairy tale to you, something you can't even imagine tasting. You wipe the last of the broth from your bowl with your bread, eating every crumb. Full now, and with a little spare money in your pocket, it's time for the afternoon's real pleasure. You stand, brush the breadcrumbs from your tunic, and join the crowd, all walking in the same direction. The afternoon sun is soft and lazy, and Rome's mood shifts with it. The morning's frantic rush to make a living fades, replaced by a sense of ease and anticipation. The streets are no less crowded, if anything. More so, but the crowd moves as one, drawn by an invisible pull to the grandest, most beloved buildings in the city, the public baths. You're part of that crowd. A trip to the baths is a non-negotiable part of daily life for every Roman, rich or poor. It's not just about washing, it's a way of life. Rome's most important social activity. You head for the nearest imperial bathhouse, Caracalla's baths, or Trajan's baths, structures that are less bathhouses, more sprawling leisure palaces, built with imperial gold, open to all citizens. The entrance fee is a single quadrans, the smallest bronze coin in Rome, a price so low even the poorest citizen can afford it. emperors don't build these baths out of kindness, though. Historians have debated their true motives for centuries. On one hand, they're vital public works. Clean facilities help keep this crowded city healthy, preventing deadly plagues. Think of it. Your home is cramped and filthy, stressful beyond measure. But the state gives you a cheap escape, a place to wash away the day's grime and tiredness, to chat with friends, to exercise, even to read and admire art. This stark contrast makes you grateful to the emperor who provided it all. It's the perfect embodiment of the bread and circus's strategy, and the baths are the daily circus. You step up to the baths, and the first thing you notice is their size. Great walls, magnificent arches, making you feel like you're entering a temple. Then you hear the noise from inside, a unique, chaotic hum of life, full of energy. The philosopher Seneca once lived above a bathhouse, and he wrote vividly of the racket, the grunts of men lifting lead weights and the crash as they drop them, the shouts of ball players, the clamour when a thief is caught, the off-key singing of men who love to belt out tunes in the water, the high-pitched cries of barbers touting their services. Seneca's complaints paint a perfect picture of the baths. This is no quiet spa, but a bustling social club, brimming with the messy, vibrant stuff of everyday life. The noise feels like home to you, a sound of relaxation and joy. You clutch the small bronze coin in your pocket, your heart light with anticipation, and push open the doors, ready to melt the morning's toil and worry away in warm steam. Through the grand entrance, you first enter the apoditerium, the changing room, a spacious hall with niches carved into the walls on either side, like cupboards today. The room is a buzz of activity, people shedding the clothes that mark their class and trade, ready to embrace a brief moment of equality in the nude. You find an empty niche, fold your plain tunic and worn sandals carefully, and set them inside. Then comes your first anxiety of the afternoon, how to keep your things safe. The changing room has no locks, and while there are slaves who will watch your belongings for a fee, you can't spare the coin. Bathhouse thieves are infamous, snatching clothes and valuables while people bathe. If your clothes are stolen, you'll have to find a way home naked, a humiliation, a joke for the whole neighborhood. You push your clothes as far back into the niche as you can and pray for luck. This small worry lays bare the illusion of equality in the baths. When you stand naked beside a senator, you look the same, but the reality is very different. He has a retinue of slaves, one to hold his expensive scented oil and strigil, another to stand guard over his clothes every second. You have only your prayers. Social status doesn't disappear when you take off your clothes. It just reveals itself in a different way. Instead of heading straight for the bathing halls, you walk to the palæstra, the open-air gym next door, a courtyard ringed by colonnades, the ground paved with smooth sand. The afternoon sun is perfect, and many people are here for light exercise, a warm-up before the baths, and another chance to socialize. You see men playing a game much like modern handball, 3 players tossing a small ball back and forth, fast, testing each other's reflexes. Some wrestle, gentle bouts of skill rather than brutal fighting. Others, like you, Stick to simple exercises, lifting dumbbells of stone or metal, or jogging around the courtyard, working up a light sweat. The air is thick with the smell of sweat and dust, and the sound of laughter and conversation. You nod at a few acquaintances, chatting about the day's pay or the latest gossip from the city. Here, you see every kind of body, the lean, muscular frames of young men, the soft, paunchy bellies of middle-aged men, the thin, wiry torsos of the elderly. No one cares, no one is ashamed. A question that has puzzled many about the baths. Did men and women bathe together? The answer is complicated. In the late Republic and early Empire, mixed bathing was common, and it sparked moral panic among Rome's elite writers. But later emperors, like Hadrian, passed laws banning it, ordering separate hours or separate sections for men and women. By your time, most large formal bathhouses have separate male and female wings, or strict rules for when each sex can enter. So all you see here are men, and only men. You've warmed up enough, your body tingling with a light sweat, and you're ready for the real bathing ritual. You cross the palastra and push open the door to the indoor baths, and a wave of warm, damp air hits you. The real spa day begins. The Roman bathing ritual is carefully designed, a scientific sequence from warm to hot to cold, and you follow it step by step. First, the tepidarium, the warm room, its temperature higher than the outside air, but not sweltering. Its job is to acclimate your body to the heat ahead, and it's another important social space. The walls and floor are heated evenly by an underground hypercourse system, so your bare feet sink into warm, soft stone. A small fountain bubbles in the center, the air warm and moist. You find a stone bench and sit, continuing the conversation you started with friends in the palastra. People talk and gossip here, their voices echoing off the vaulted ceiling. It's a transition space, where your body and mind both slow down, relax. After a while in the tepidarium, your pores are open and your skin is warm. You stand and move to the eldarium, the hot room. The door creaks open and a blast of intense heat hits you like a modern sauna. This room is always on the southern side of the bathhouse, with large windows to soak up as much sunlight as possible. Sweat breaks out on your skin at once, beads rolling down your back, your forehead, your chest. You're soon drenched. The caldarium has a few hot water pools, and you can step in for a soak, letting the heat seep into your bones and relax your muscles. But the most important part of the hot room isn't the soak, it's the cleaning. You pull a small jar from your pouch, pour scented olive oil into your palm, and rub it all over your body thick and slow. The oil dissolves the dirt and dead skin on your skin, trapping it in its slick surface. Then you take out your strigil, a curved tool of bronze or iron, and scrape the oil sweat and dirt from your skin. You scrape your arms, your legs, your chest by yourself, and a friend helps with your back. If you had money, you could hire a bathhouse slave to do it for you. But this is enough. You scrape hard, and a black, greasy paste of oil, sweat, and grime builds up on the strigil. To modern eyes, it's an unpleasant process, but to Romans, this is true cleanliness. They believe that sweating profusely and scraping away the grime flushes the bad humors from your body, bringing you back to a healthy balance. And here's a curious fact about that greasy paste. The grime scraped from famous gladiators and athletes was collected in small jars and sold. People believed this essence from strong, healthy bodies could cure illnesses or bring good luck when rubbed on the skin. Let's just say the ancient Roman approach to wellness was unique. The hypercourse system that heats the baths is one of Rome's greatest engineering marvels. Slaves build a dense network of brick pillars under the bathhouse floors, lifting the stone up to create a hollow space below. In a nearby boiler room, slaves feed wood into fires non-stop, and hot air circulates through the hollow space, heating the floors and walls above. To this day, archaeologists and engineers marvel at its design and efficiency. You stay in the caldarium until your whole body is warm, your muscles loose, all the tiredness of the day drained away in sweat. Then comes the final, most invigorating step. You hurry back through the tepidarium and straight into the frigidarium, the cold room, a grand hall with a large cold water pool at its center. You take a deep breath and jump in, no hesitation. For a split second, every pore in your body tightens, a shock of cold shooting through you. The drowsiness from the hot room vanishes in an instant, replaced by a rush of clarity and energy, a feeling of refreshment like no other. You splash around for a minute, then climb out, your skin tingling, your body clean and alive. The Roman bathing ritual is complete. You feel clean, your mind sharp, your spirit light. This isn't just a wash, it's a reset for your body and your soul. You don't hurry to leave after the bath, because for Romans, the baths are never just a place to wash. They're a huge cultural and social complex, the true heart of city life. You dry your body with a linen cloth, wrap it around your waist. No need to get dressed just yet and wander the other parts of the bathhouse. You walk down a corridor lined with beautiful mosaic art and reach the bathhouse library. Yes, a library. Large imperial bathhouses always have two. One for Latin scrolls, one for Greek. Bookshelves line the walls, and you can pull a scroll down at random, sit in the reading room, and read. Even if you can't read much, you come here for the culture, to listen to scholars debate philosophy and literature. From the library, you step into the bathhouse's sprawling gardens, lush with green trees and blooming flowers, dotted with exquisite marble statues. People walk and talk here, enjoying a moment of peace away from the city's noise. Small stalls sell drinks and snacks, fresh fruit, nuts, honey cakes. As you walk, you hear the sound of a man reciting poetry, his voice rising and falling with passion. You wander over and see a man in a toga standing under a statue, declaiming his own verses to a small crowd. He's dramatic, gesturing wildly, his face full of emotion, but the crowd isn't impressed. Some snicker, others slip away quietly. It's a common sight in the baths. Unknown poets and writers use the space as their stage, drawn by the crowds of bored, idle people, a captive audience for free. For you, it's free entertainment, even if the poetry is hit or miss. Beyond the library and gardens, the baths of lecture halls music rooms, even a small gymnasium. It's like a modern community center, catering to every need, physical and spiritual. Emperors provide these luxuries, not just the basics, but art and knowledge, to show their kindness, to flaunt the empire's cultural superiority. They don't just give you cleanliness, they give you civilization. It's a brilliant act of governance, making you feel grateful, making you identify with and cling to the empire's system, all while you enjoy the simple pleasures of the baths. Of course, the public baths are a double-edged sword. On one hand, they undeniably raise the personal hygiene of Rome's population, helping to control diseases spread by dirty living conditions. On the other hand, thousands of people bathe in the same water, with primitive water circulation and no real disinfection. The baths are a breeding ground for skin diseases and other infections, a fact ancient doctors noted, often warning that a trip to the baths could leave you sick. But you don't think about that now. You're just enjoying this cheap luxury, this small pleasure for the common man. You sit on a stone bench in the garden, watching the people pass, feeling for a moment that you share the same sun, the same space, as the wealthy women in silk, attended by slaves. It feels good. Time slips by, and you decide it's time to get dressed, because there's an even more exciting event waiting for you today. You pull on your tunic and sandals, step out of the baths, your body light and relaxed. But the lazy calm of the baths is gone now, replaced by a building buzz of excitement in the air. Today is a day of games at the Colosseum, the Flavian amphitheater, the greatest show on earth. You join thousands of other Romans, a huge river of people flowing toward the iconic structure at the heart of the city. The closer you get, the more it overwhelms you. It rises like a man-made mountain, its great arches and tiered seating making you hold your breath. Awestruck, getting to the games is a luxury for you. Sometimes emperors hold free games to celebrate a holiday or a military victory, but most of the time you need a ticket. You're lucky your guild got you one. It's not paper, but a small piece of terracotta or bone carved with numbers, the archway to enter through, the section, the row, your seat. This system is a masterpiece of Roman organization. The Colosseum has 80 entrances, 76 open to the public, and with this numbering system, more than 50,000 spectators can file in and find their seats in minutes. No crowds, no chaos. It's a show in itself. You find the archway marked on your ticket, show it to the doorkeeper, and climb the stone stairs and corridors inside. The seating at the Colosseum is the most direct, unflinching expression of Roman social hierarchy. Your seat is on the top tier, the 5th level, wooden benches steeply sloped, the view poor at best. This is where the common folk sit, laborers, peddlers, women. Below you, the 4th tier is for the middle class, wealthy freedmen. The 3rd for the equestrian order, the knight class. The 2nd tier, with the best views in the house, is reserved for senators, and the marble platform closest to the sand. The arena is a private box for the emperor, the Vestal virgins, and the highest-ranking officials. Everyone sits in their place. There stands a giant map of Roman society, You and the Emperor watch the same show, but a vast, uncrossable gulf, physical and social, separates you. It's brilliant social engineering. 50,000 people gathered together, sharing a moment of collective joy. But the seats never let you forget your place, to stay in line, to know your station. It's a silent lesson in social order, taught through entertainment. You finally find your seat, a narrow wooden bench, and squeeze in among the excited crowd, leaning forward to stare down at the sand, bleached white by the sun. High walls ring the arena, topped with rollers and spikes to stop wild animals from leaping onto the stands. You spot the masts at the top of the Colosseum, used to hold a huge awning, the Valarium. Today is a beautiful day, and the awning is stretched tight, a giant canopy shading most of the stands from the harsh sun. How hundreds of sailors managed to hoist and adjust it so high. It's a question that's puzzled people for centuries. You look around, and the Colosseum is packed, every seat filled. The hum of 50,000 voices blends into a single low roar. The air thick with the smell of sweat, food, and anticipation. Peddlers weave through the stands, selling drinks and snacks. You clench your fists, your heart pounding in your chest. You know the show is about to begin, a spectacle of thrills and blood that will make your heart race. Before the main games start, there's a grand procession, a display of imperial might in the scale of the show. A blast of trumpets rings out, loud and clear, and the Colosseum falls silent in an instant. Then music swells, and the procession begins. First come the trumpeters and musicians, dressed in fine uniforms, playing a stirring, triumphant tune. Behind them walk attendants carrying flags and statues of Rome's gods. Their presence, a blessing on the games, a reminder that the gods watch over Rome. Then comes the sponsor of the day's games, riding in a magnificent chariot, circling the arena, waving to the crowd. The spectators erupt in thunderous cheers, shouting his name, a moment for you to show your respect and gratitude to the power that provides the entertainment. Finally, the most exciting part. The gladiators march in, a neat line, each in the armor of their fighting style. Weapons at their sides, their steps slow and steady. They're tall and strong, their armor glinting in the sun, making them look like gods walking the earth. They circle the arena, saluting the emperor and the crowd. Here's a common misconception, one you'll hear in stories for centuries. Movies show gladiators raising their arms and shouting to the emperor. We, who are about to die, salute you. It's a dramatic line full of sorrow, but history tells a different story. That phrase was only recorded once, in a very special case. Emperor Claudius held a mock sea battle in a flooded arena, with thousands of condemned prisoners fighting, not professional gladiators. Those men, facing certain death, shouted the words. Professional gladiators are valuable performers, expensive to train and keep. They don't expect to die every time they step into the arena. They'd never utter such a defeatist cry. The morning's games begin, and they're always the Venetians, the beast hunts. The arena sand is decorated to look like a forest or mountains, a temporary wilderness, and then exotic animals are released. brought from every corner of the empire. You see ostriches from North Africa, bears from Gaul, wild boars from the Danube, sometimes even rarer creatures, lions, tigers, leopards, even rhinos and elephants. Trained hunters or armed prisoners fight and kill the animals. The scene's spectacular, brutal, thrilling. For you, it's more than just a show. When you see a lion from the far deserts of Africa killed in the heart of Rome, it's a vivid display of imperial power. It tells you that Rome's might is unchallenged, that it can conquer the fiercest beasts on earth and bring them to your doorstep. The logistics of catching, transporting, and feeding these animals, its scale and complexity, still amaze people to this day. After the beast hunts come the executions, usually condemned prisoners torn apart by wild animals. When the morning's bloodshed is done, there's a break. Laborers rush into the arena, cleaning the sand of blood and gore, spreading a fresh layer of clean white sand. The Latin word for sand arena gives its name to the arena itself. You use the break to eat the bread and olives you brought, the crowd's excitement fading for a moment. Then, building again, slow and steady, everyone knows the real show starts in the afternoon. The gladiator fights. The afternoon sun dips low, painting the Colosseum stone in gold, and the crowd's excitement hits its peak. The break ends, trumpets blare again, and the gladiator duels. The main event begins. You lean forward, your eyes fixed on the sand, your breath caught in your throat. First up, two gladiators of different styles, a classic match of strength against speed. One is a secutor, a chaser covered in heavy armor, a large shield and a short sword in his hands, his head protected by a smooth helmet with only two small slits for his eyes to stop his opponent's blade from piercing it. His foe is a retiarius, a net fighter, his gear sparse, only a shoulder guard and an arm guard, his weapons a net, a trident, and a dagger. It's a battle of brute force and quick wit. The secutor advances like a heavy tank, his shield forward, trying to ram the retiarius, to pin him down and strike with his sword. The retiarius moves like a dancer, leaping back, darting to the side, keeping his distance, waiting for the perfect moment to hurl his net and trap his foe, then strike with the trident. You cheer and gasp with the crowd at every strike, every dodge. This isn't mindless bloodshed. It's a martial art, a duel of skill and strategy. Most gladiators are slaves or prisoners of war, but they're trained rigorously. Professional fighters, the best among them, are worth a fortune. Superstars adored by the whole of Rome. Their names and win counts scrawled in graffiti on every wall in the city. Scientists who've studied the bones of gladiators in ancient cemeteries have made a surprising discovery. Their diet was unique. Their bones have high levels of calcium and zinc, evidence that they ate mostly plant-based foods, barley above all. They were nicknamed barley eaters for a reason. This high-carb diet built up a thick layer of fat under their skin, a cushion that protected their muscles and blood vessels from minor cuts and blows in battle. So they weren't the chiseled, muscular men of movies. They were strong, stocky, solid, built for survival. The fight is fierce, back and forth, neither man gaining the upper hand for long. Finally, the retiarius seizes his chance. The secutor stumbles. A small mistake, and the net flies through the air, wrapping around him, tangling his legs, his shield, his sword arm. The Retiarius steps forward, his trident pressed to the Secutor's throat. The entire Colosseum holds its breath. All eyes turn to the game's sponsor, the Emperor himself, in his private box. The fallen Secutor lifts one finger, the universal sign for mercy. For his life to be spared, his fate now lies with the crowd's reaction and the Emperor's final verdict. The crowd roars, making their voices heard, their hands gesturing, the famous moment of the thumbs. But what do the gestures really mean? To this day, no one is sure. The common belief is that a thumbs down means kill him. A thumbs up means spare him. But some historians argue the opposite. A thumbs down mimics driving a sword into the ground, a sign to lower the weapon and spare the loser. A thumbs up, or a thumb pointed at the throat, mimics drawing a sword, a demand for death. The ancient records are vague, and the truth may never be known. Today, the Secutor fought bravely, and the crowd is on his side, crying out for mercy. The Emperor reads the crowd's mood and makes his gesture spare him. The Retiarius lowers his trident, and slaves rush in to help the Secutor to his feet. He's lost the fight, but he's alive. The crowd erupts in applause, cheering the brave loser. More duels follow. A Mamillo, a gladiator dressed like a Roman legionary, against a Thracian with a curved sword and a small shield. Each match has its own thrill, its own style. For you, gladiators are the greatest contradiction of Roman society. They're lowborn, considered unclean, outcasts. But in the arena, their courage and skill win them the respect and adoration of everyone, rich and poor alike. Rome's love of disciplined violence, of personal bravery, is etched deep into its culture, and the gladiators are its perfect symbol. The sun dips below the horizon, the last light fading from the sky, and the final duel ends. The day's games are over. 50,000 spectators rise as one, a slow, tired tide flowing toward the 80 entrances, spilling out into Rome's streets. You join them, squeezing through the crowd, your legs sore, your ears still ringing with the clash of swords and the roar of the crowd. You walk back into Rome's evening, the day's noise fading, but the city never sleeps. Shop shutters are closed, but torches burn on the streets. Oil lamps glow in windows, their light casting flickering shadows on the stone flagstones. The air smells of wood smoke, of dinner cooking in homes all over the city, a warm, savory scent. Your stomach growls, you're hungry again. A grand feast with 7 or 8 courses is out of the question. Just like breakfast and lunch, you find a street stall still open. Use the last of your coins to buy a hunk of bread, a small piece of cheese, a handful of salty olives. This is your dinner, simple and meager. You eat as you walk, making your way through the darkening streets. Rome's streets have no names, no signs. You navigate by memory, by familiar landmarks. Turn left at the big fountain. Walk straight to the bakery. My home is in the alley behind it. Night in Rome is dangerous. The night watchmen patrol, keeping the peace and fighting fires. But they're few, and the city is vast. They can't be everywhere. For you, the best strategy is to hurry home, to avoid the dark alleys where robbers and drunks lurk. You finally reach your insula, the street below dark and quiet. You feel your way along the cold stone wall, climbing the stairs again, the same creaky, worn stairs, the same cluttered stairwell. With every step up, the city's noise fades a little more, replaced by the sounds of home, your neighbor's voice, a baby crying, the crackle of a charcoal brazier. You push open your door and step into your small, dim room. Your family is already asleep, a single small oil lamp burning on a wooden chest, its light flickering. You slip off your sandals, place the last of your bread and cheese on the chest for your family. For breakfast tomorrow, you lie back down on your hard, straw-stuffed mattress, closing your eyes. The day is done. You started in this cramped room, walked through Rome's chaotic streets, stood in awe of the Forum's grandeur, sweated through hard work, washed away your tiredness in the baths, and felt the thrill of the Colosseum's games. And now you're back to this small, fragile space that is your home. This day is the story of nearly every Roman commoner's life. A private life of hardship and want, a public life of grandeur and spectacle. The state doesn't fix your shabby home, but it gives you a place to forget how shabby it is. It doesn't ease your poverty, but it gives you moments of joy, of excitement, of belonging. This is the secret to Rome's stability, to holding together a city of 1 million people, balancing private hardship with public luxury, with the bread and circuses that make life bearable. It's an unspoken social contract, the quiet logic that makes this great empire turn. You sink into sleep, tired to your bones, the sounds of Rome fading into the dark.